Hello, my name is Sarah. I am an English learner. This is my story. I want to share with you my amazing experience of traveling to New York. I will tell you about my journey and how I'm improving my English in this historic, lively city. I hope you will join me in learning English through my adventure. Lesson 1. It is a sunny morning in September. I am sitting on an airplane traveling to New York for the first time. Two people are sitting next to me on the plane. They are speaking English, but I only understand a few words. I have studied English before, but I'm still learning. I don't know enough yet to have long conversations. I smile at them, and they smile back. I decide to try speaking with them. I say, "Hello, my name is Sarah. I learn English." They smile again and say, "Nice to meet you, Sarah. We're from the USA." I feel happy that they understand me. They tell me they live in New York and ask me what I'm going to do there. I tell them, I study English in New York. Our conversation is short but friendly. Before I leave the plane, they give me their contact information and invite me to visit them while I'm in New York. After landing, I make my way to my new school in the heart of the city. It's Monday, and I'm excited about my first English class. I meet my teacher and the other students. My teacher is a young man named Mr. Anderson. He's very friendly and welcoming. The class begins with Mr. Anderson asking us about our goals for learning English. I say, I want to speak English fluently. He smiles and says, "That's a great goal, Sarah." In this class, we'll focus on speaking, listening, and using English in real situations. Mr. Anderson then explains his teaching method. You don't need to memorize long lists of vocabulary or study too much grammar at first, he says. The best way to learn a language is by using it every day. You will speak English, listen to English, and practice it as much as possible. I feel relieved. I've always found textbooks boring, and I prefer learning through practice. Mr. Anderson continues, in this class, we will speak about real-life situations. You will learn new words and grammar naturally just by using English. We spend the rest of the lesson introducing ourselves and talking about our hobbies. I practice speaking with my classmates. At first, I feel nervous, but I soon realize that everyone is trying their best, just like me. By the end of the lesson, I am smiling. I feel confident that I will improve my English in New York. I plan to visit the people I met on the plane, explore the city, and practice English every chance I get. I know that with time and practice, my English will get better. I'm excited for this journey and ready to learn more every day. If you want to learn English like me, remember to use it as much as you can. Speak, listen, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process. Lesson 2. How to learn words. On Tuesday, I go back to school for my second lesson. I am excited to learn more. During the lesson, one of my classmates asks a question that really interests me. She asks, what is the best way to learn new words? Our teacher, Mr. Anderson, smiles and says, there are many methods to learn new words, but for me, reading is the best. People who read regularly learn words faster than those who don't. If you read for just 30 minutes a day, you will notice the improvement. Today, I will show you how to get the most from reading. He continues, the key is to read something that you enjoy. Choose a book or article that is interesting to you. It could be a story or something related to your job, or even a hobby you love. If the text isn't interesting, it's harder to stay focused, and try to read something where you already know most of the words. Mr. Anderson then gives us some helpful tips. When you find a word you don't understand, don't worry. Just take your dictionary, look it up, and continue reading. Don't stop to write the word down or try to memorize it right away. The important thing is to focus on understanding the overall meaning of the text. He also explains, reading teaches you more than just new words. You'll see how words are used together in sentences. This helps you understand how to use words correctly in real conversations. It's a simple but very effective way to learn. I find this advice very useful, and I decide to try it. After the lesson, we discuss different topics, including life in New York and the kinds of jobs available for students like me. I am interested in finding a job while I study, so I ask my classmates for advice. One student tells me about a place called the Job Center, where students can look for part-time work. I feel excited and decide to visit the Job Center right after class. When I arrive at the Job Center, I speak to a kind lady at the desk. I ask her what kind of jobs are available for students. She smiles and tells me that there are a few options, like working as a cleaner or a waiter in a cafe. I feel nervous because I don't have any experience with these types of jobs. I explain this to the lady and she reassures me. Your English is good enough to work at a cafe, she says. You'll get training, and you'll be able to practice your English with customers. It's a great way to improve. I feel relieved and happy. She tells me that I can start working at a cafe on Thursday. This is great news. Not only do I have a job, but I also have a chance to use English every day while I work. As I leave the job center, I feel excited about my new job and my progress in learning English. I remember Mr. Anderson's advice. Reading every day will help me learn new words, and now I know I can also practice my English at work. When you want to learn new words, try reading for 30 minutes each day. Choose something you enjoy and don't worry if you don't know every word. Just look up what you need and keep going. It's a fun and effective way to grow your vocabulary. Lesson 3. How to learn pronunciation. On Wednesday, I return to school for my third lesson. There's one student in the class who is quieter than the others. He's from South Korea. Our teacher, Mr. Anderson, asks if we have any questions. The student from Korea raises his hand. He seems a bit nervous, but finally says, I have a big problem with pronunciation. I know my pronunciation isn't good, but I don't know how to make it better. He continues, I read books and watch films in English. I understand a lot, but I don't feel confident speaking. Is there something I can do to improve my pronunciation? Mr. Anderson listens carefully and then says, This is a common problem, and I'm glad you asked. Let me explain a few things about pronunciation and share a technique that can help you. He begins by telling us why many students struggle with pronunciation. When we speak, we use muscles in our mouth. The problem is that when you speak English, you might use the muscles in the same way you do in your native language. This makes your English pronunciation sound more like your native language. Almost every student experiences this, so don't worry. It's normal. Mr. Anderson continues, The good news is that you can improve your pronunciation. There's a simple and effective technique called shadowing that can help you. Here's how it works. When you shadow, you listen to someone speaking English and immediately repeat what they say. You copy their sounds as closely as possible, just like how children learn their first language. They listen to their parents, repeat what they hear, and over time, their pronunciation becomes perfect. You can do the same with English. To show us how shadowing works, Mr. Anderson opens a video on YouTube. It's a slow-paced English conversation that we can easily understand. This video will help you practice shadowing, he says. We watch the video and then try shadowing for about 3 minutes, repeating the words right after we hear them. At first, it feels a little strange, but as I keep going, I start to get the hang of it. Mr. Anderson tells us, this technique is also great for preparing for presentations. If you have an important speech or presentation, do some shadowing for 10 minutes beforehand. It will help your pronunciation sound much better. I find this method very interesting. I've never heard of shadowing before, and I'm excited to try it on my own. After the lesson, I go to the school reception to ask about sports activities. I love sports, and I'd like to play something while I'm in England. The lady at the reception smiles and tells me, we have a table tennis team and a football team. The football team has training today at 5 o'clock. I'm thrilled. I love football, and I'm eager to meet new people through the sport. At 5 o'clock, I go to the football training and meet players from all over the world: Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. The training is fun, and I quickly make some new friends. By the end of the day, I feel really happy. My time in England is off to a great start. I have an amazing teacher, I've learned a new technique to improve my English, and I've joined a football team. Tomorrow I will start my new job at the cafe, and I can't wait to use my English there as well. If you want to improve your pronunciation, remember to practice shadowing. Listen to native speakers and repeat what they say. Over time, you'll notice your pronunciation getting better. Lesson 4. How to practice speaking. On Thursday, I head back to school, excited for another lesson. There's a new student in our class today. Her name is Monica, and she's from Italy. As the lesson begins, our teacher, Mr. Anderson, asks Monica a few questions. He seems to know her from before. It turns out that Monica attended his beginner English class 1 year ago, during a 2-week summer holiday program. When Monica starts speaking, her English is remarkable. Her pronunciation is clear, and she speaks fluently without hesitation. Mr. Anderson is impressed. Your school in Italy must be very good, he says, smiling. Monica surprises us all when she responds, I don't go to any school. I've been learning English at home. I use the techniques you taught me last summer: reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think in English as much as I can, more than in Italian. That's how I've improved. The 2 weeks I spent in your class last summer showed me how to work on my English every day. Now I can speak much better, and that's why I wanted to come back to your class. I was a beginner before, but now I can speak English confidently. I want to keep learning from you. Mr. Anderson looks very pleased and thanks Monica for her dedication and hard work. Hearing this makes me curious. I've heard about reading and shadowing, but I don't know what thinking aloud is. So I raise my hand and ask, what is thinking aloud? Mr. Anderson explains, thinking aloud is a powerful technique, but it requires strong motivation to be effective. For some people, it might even seem a little crazy at first, but if you stick with it, it can dramatically improve your English. I'm intrigued. I have strong motivation, I say. I don't mind if it seems crazy. If it helps, I want to learn it. Can you teach us this technique? Of course, Mr. Anderson replies. It's actually very simple. Every day, you think in your native language without even realizing it. Now you can start thinking in English instead. Once you start thinking in English, the next step is to say your thoughts aloud. That's all it is, just saying out loud whatever you're thinking. That sounds simple, I say, but why is it so effective? Mr. Anderson smiles and suggests, maybe you can ask Monica. She's been using this technique, and she can explain more about her experience. Our teacher then turns to Monica, who agrees to share her story. When I first started using this technique, it wasn't easy, she admits. I began with very simple sentences like, I can speak English. It's good that I can speak English. I want to get better. I need to practice every day. I don't know many words, but I can use the words I do know. I can express my ideas with these words. I can do this. She pauses and adds, at the beginning, I had a big problem. My thoughts in Italian were long and complicated, but I couldn't say exactly the same things in English. I had to simplify my ideas. Thinking in simple English was the hardest part. But after some time, it became natural. Eventually, something amazing happened. I met a man from Australia who was on holiday in Italy. Even though I was still a beginner, I could talk to him in English without much trouble. My sentences were short and simple, but I didn't have to translate in my head from Italian to English. That was a huge breakthrough for me. After that, I started using the thinking aloud technique more and more. It helped me improve my speaking a lot. I still use it every day, and it's been a big part of my progress. I'm fascinated by Monica's story. Mr. Anderson thanks her for sharing her experience, and I realize that thinking aloud could be the key to improving my own speaking skills. I'm excited to try it for myself. When you want to speak English fluently, start by thinking in English and saying your thoughts aloud. This simple but effective technique can greatly improve your speaking skills over time. Lesson 5. How to learn grammar. After school, I head to the cafe where I'm starting my job training. I'm nervous because I don't have any experience, and I'm unsure whether I'll be able to handle the tasks. When I arrive, I'm pleasantly surprised. The cafe is modern and cozy, offering coffee, tea, chocolate cakes, and sandwiches. My boss, to my surprise, is only 25 years old. She started working here 2 years ago and has a lot of experience. She knows everything about running the cafe and patiently shows me how to prepare coffee, wash dishes, and interact with customers. Although I can only remember about 20% of what she teaches me, she lets me practice, correcting my mistakes as I go along. She's very friendly, and I quickly pick up the basics. By the end of my first day, I'm exhausted but happy to have a job. The next day is Friday, and I'm back at school. During class, one student asks a question that catches my attention. Sometimes when I speak, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct grammar. How can I improve my grammar? Our teacher, Mr. Anderson, thanks the student for the question and responds, there are 2 types of students when it comes to learning English. Some are learning because they want to speak fluently, while others are learning to pass exams. The approach to learning grammar differs for each group. He continues, if you're learning English to speak, you don't need to focus too much on grammar. Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't study grammar rules, but you picked it up naturally by using the language. The same can be done with English. The best way to learn grammar naturally is by reading a lot. Books are written using correct grammar, so when you read, you absorb grammar in the context of sentences. I feel relieved hearing this, as I love reading. Mr. Anderson adds, shadowing is also a great way to practice correct grammar. When you repeat sentences aloud using the shadowing technique, you're practicing good grammar without even thinking about it. You're learning through imitation. And if you want some guidance on what grammar to focus on, you can visit www.grammarinlevels.com. This website organizes grammar rules according to different English levels and gives you examples to practice. I make a note to check out the website later. For students who need to pass exams, Mr. Anderson continues, I recommend studying the specific grammar that will be on the test. If you can, get past versions of the exam and use them for practice. That way, you can familiarize yourself with the structure and types of questions. Only take the exam when you feel confident enough after practicing with those materials. The student thanks Mr. Anderson, and I feel even better about my approach to learning English. Since I'm not studying to pass any exam, I don't have to stress about memorizing grammar rules. I can improve naturally through reading and practicing my speaking. Later, I check out the website Mr. Anderson mentioned. It's really helpful. It divides grammar into 3 levels: 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 words, with clear examples. I'm excited to start using it to brush up on my grammar in a simple and manageable way. In the afternoon, I return to the cafe for my second day of work. I'm surprised at how much I've already learned. I can handle a lot of the tasks on my own now, but my boss is always there to help if I get stuck. The job isn't as difficult as I thought, and the best part is that I get to practice my English while speaking to customers. I realize that this job is going to help me improve both my confidence and my language skills. When you want to have good grammar, read a lot. Lesson 6. How to test your English. It's Monday again, and I head to school. During class, our teacher asks what we did over the weekend. I share that I worked on Saturday and feel confident about my tasks now. I also mention how happy I am to interact with customers in English. One of the girls in the class notices a difference in my voice and comments, "You sound different from last week. Your pronunciation has really improved." I smile and respond, "Thank you. I practiced shadowing on Saturday evening and all day Sunday. I tried to speak like a native speaker. It's not perfect yet, but I definitely see a big improvement in my pronunciation." Our teacher is pleased to hear this and asks if any other students have tried shadowing. 3 students raise their hands. The student from South Korea, who likes the technique, says it's been helpful for him as well. Another student mentions that she tried shadowing but stopped after 5 minutes because her mouth hurt and the recording was too fast. Our teacher explains, "Thank you for sharing your experiences. If your mouth hurts after just 5 minutes of shadowing, it means you're doing it correctly. It's like when you start working out at the gym. Your muscles can hurt if they're not used to the new exercise. You can take breaks and continue later. With each 5-minute session, your pronunciation will improve. Shadowing also helps with intonation, rhythm, and connecting words in sentences. If the recording seems too fast, you can start by repeating only the first or last word of each sentence. With practice, you'll be able to keep up better." I agree with our teacher. I found that shadowing was difficult at first, but by Sunday evening, it became much easier. I then ask our teacher about the website www.grammarinlevels.com. I found it interesting but wasn't sure what level to start because I don't know how many English words I know. Our teacher asks the class if anyone knows how many words they know. To my surprise, no one knows. We all realize we're intermediate students but lack an exact measure of our vocabulary size. Our teacher then introduces a new website, www.testlanguages.com. This site offers a simple test to find out how many words you know. You can take the test every month to track your progress. It only has 2 steps and is really easy to use. I'm excited to find out my vocabulary size, so I immediately take the test on my smartphone. I discover that I know 2,100 words in English. Most of the other students know between 2,000 and 2,200 words, while Monica and the boy from South Korea know about 2,500 words. Our teacher explains, based on your vocabulary size, you should be working with Level 2 on www.grammerinlevels.com. Since you know between 2,000 and 3,000 words, you can start exploring Level 3 grammar. As I leave school, I feel motivated to use these tools to track my progress and continue improving my English. It's encouraging to see where I stand and to have clear goals for my next steps. Test your progress every month. Lesson 7. How to handle mistakes. On Tuesday, I go to school again. During the lesson, a student asks a thought-provoking question. I want to practice speaking with people around me, but I don't want to make mistakes. I'm afraid of looking foolish. Can you help me? Our teacher responds thoughtfully. Handling mistakes is an important topic. Many people have different views on this, and I want to share what I believe is the best approach based on my experience. I'm currently learning Spanish, and when I speak it, I don't worry much about making mistakes. The reason I'm not concerned is straightforward. When I learned my native language, mistakes weren't a big deal. My primary goal was to express my ideas. As long as I keep reading, speaking, and doing shadowing, my Spanish improves over time. This might seem simple, but it's what I've learned through years of teaching and learning languages. It works well for me and many of my students. When I speak, I focus solely on communicating. At the moment, I know about 1,500 words in Spanish, which is about the level of a 2-year-old child. 2-year-olds make many mistakes when they speak, but they don't let it stop them. By the time they're 3, they make fewer mistakes, and by 4, they speak quite well. You can follow the same path. Most of you know around 2,000 words in English, so making occasional mistakes is perfectly normal. To advance to higher levels, you must accept and learn from mistakes. Just like learning to play a musical instrument, language learning involves practice and making mistakes. If you skip this phase, you won't progress to higher levels. As you continue using English, your mistakes will gradually decrease. To minimize mistakes, engage in a lot of reading and shadowing. Reading aloud can also help you improve. In conversations, focus on conveying your ideas rather than perfecting your grammar. Your goal is to practice expressing thoughts, not to master grammar or vocabulary on the spot. Remember, everyone learning a foreign language makes mistakes. Famous people, CEOs, and politicians included. When you hear them speaking, they prioritize getting their message across rather than avoiding mistakes. You should do the same. Does this make sense? The girl responds, yes, thank you. Our teacher concludes, if you want to make fewer mistakes, engage in extensive reading and shadowing. Feeling reassured, I leave class thinking about how to approach my own English practice. I realize that making mistakes is part of the learning process and that focusing on communicating my ideas is the most important thing. Lesson 8. How to remember words. Level 1. On Wednesday, I go to school again. At the start of the lesson, a student raises a question. I've started reading more and it seems to be improving my grammar. However, I struggle with remembering new words. When I come across an unfamiliar word and look it up in the dictionary, I might see it again just minutes later and still forget it. How can I improve my word retention? Our teacher responds thoughtfully. That's a great question. It's common to forget new words right after learning them. In fact, it usually takes multiple exposures to a word before it sticks. Here's a breakdown of how word retention works through 5 distinct phases. 1. First encounter. This is when you see a new word for the first time and don't know its meaning. You look it up in the dictionary. Second encounter. You recognize the word from before, but still don't remember its meaning. You might look it up again. 3. Emerging understanding. You begin to have an idea of what the word could mean, though you're not certain. For instance, you might guess it's a type of object, animal, or verb. 4. Passive knowledge. At this stage, you understand the word's meaning when you see it, but you might not recall it when you need to use it in conversation. The word is part of your passive vocabulary. 5. Active use. Finally, you can use the word correctly when speaking. This is when the word is firmly embedded in your active vocabulary. Understanding these phases helps explain why you can't remember a new word immediately after your first encounter. Words need multiple exposures to transition through these phases. Celebrate not only when you fully remember a word, but also when you move from one phase to the next. Each phase is a step closer to using the word effortlessly in everyday communication. I find this explanation enlightening. I've often felt frustrated when I forget a word shortly after learning it. Knowing that it's normal to need several encounters with a word before fully remembering it makes me feel better. I realize now that persistence is key and that moving through these phases is part of the learning process. After school, I head to my football training. Our coach announces that there's a match on Saturday against another school team from Cambridge and invites me to play for the school team. I'm thrilled and eagerly anticipate the match. As I prepare for the game, I remind myself that just as with learning vocabulary, improvement in any skill, whether it's remembering words or playing football, comes with practice and repetition. When you want to remember a new word, you need to see or hear it about 10 times to fully retain it.